for joining us on, Veterans Day. We wanted to find like the right date so that way everyone could, have the time aside from work and, homework and projects and etc., life, family, whatnot. So that way we could tune in and have just like a guest speaker night for Neo Design. I'm pretty sure most of you guys are familiar with the club already, but basically what we're trying to do with Neo Design is still make like a more design oriented, community and at SJSU, whether that be, industrial design, graphic design, etc. But what we've really been trying to do like the past few semesters is basically revive the club and have it become a little bit more active in regards to, communication with each student of different backgrounds and hosting workshops, social events kind of like this. And then whenever chance we get, also a guest speaker, evening like this, just so that way we still have, activity within the club occurring, because the club was a little bit stagnant for a couple of years back. And obviously now that COVID and quarantine happened, that was a little bit more challenging as well for us to really get the ball rolling. But we've kind of found some more resourceful outputs, like our Discord channel, which I think we can post in the chat. I don't know, Mark, if you can do that. If anyone's not signed up onto it yet, we have a Discord channel where we're basically posting announcements there. You can get feedback on work as well. If there's any like resources that you maybe want to share with your classmates or you'd like to know about, all things of that sort, we're sharing on there. Instagram, Facebook, all things of that sort is where we're also trying to become a little bit more active. But with that, I think I could probably introduce both of our guest speakers for tonight. I'm just going to read off what Mark had sent me because he's having audio issues at the moment, but it's all good. I got you, Mark. So tonight we have two guest speakers. The first one is Brady Comerford. Brady is a graphic designer and photographer based in Sacramento, California. And currently he works at the Foundation of California Community Colleges, which is an organization that partners with the state to help support and build programs that benefit community colleges and its students. He also has worked at Unitrans, which is a student-run transit system in Davis. And our second guest speaker tonight is Leonardo de la Rocha. Leonardo is a design director and South Bay local. He's currently a director at Intuit Design System and located in Mountain View, California. A business and financial software company. I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with Intuit. They kind of are in charge of QuickBooks and TurboTax and all those different financial branches. And previously, Leonardo's also worked at Facebook under their art department and business marketing and advertising branch. And with that, I think we're going to kick off with Brady this evening. Whenever you get the chance, Brady, just unmute, introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Brady, and I've prepared a bit of a presentation. So I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Can you all see this? It should be a black rectangle. Okay, cool. Well, my presentation is how to fake being a good designer for fun and profit. And I'm going to use this as a framework to talk about, growing as a designer, overcoming imposter syndrome, and just finding ways to better yourself. So, hi again. My name is Brady. I'm 26. I'm a graphic designer. I've been designing professionally for over 5 years. I'm full-time in-house. I do freelance on the side, and I do a lot of personal work. My areas of focus are in branding, editorial design, events, and print design. You can see on the screen some examples of work that I've done. And I'm located up in Sacramento. And when Stephanie contacted me to be one of your speakers, I initially turned her down because I felt like I didn't have enough to contribute to a student group, enough insight, enough experience. But she insisted. So that kind of got me thinking about the difference between how I perceive myself and how other people perceive what I put out into the world. And that got me thinking about imposter syndrome and a whole bunch of other things. So I'm going to start us off with two kinds of introductions for myself. And the first one is the beautiful facade. So AKA the brag version of the introduction. I'm a senior designer at a mid to large size nonprofit. I'm part of an award-winning in-house communications team. Our work has statewide reach. It's seen by millions of Californians every day, and it's also goes to huge organizations and nonprofits like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the California State Legislature. I also have a broad range of freelance work. I've done political campaigns. I've done underground music venues. And I also have a reasonable social media following, and my work is enjoyed by notable studios, designers, and organizations. Like I said, this is the brag version. I promise I'm not this pompous. And I've had my work featured at Adobe Max. So that sounds pretty impressive. Now it's time for the other introduction, which is the ugly truth, AKA the sad version. My job is a creative dead end. We do work that is good, but never great. There's an example of work that we do. It's competent, it's clean, but it never pushes boundaries. It's never innovative. It's always good, just nothing more. And because of that, I have a really hard time showing that I know how to do innovative design work. And I've been trying to get out of this job for 4 years, and I have not succeeded yet. We're only really award winning when because of the space we're in, right? It's community colleges, and when you're decent at design in the community college space, that's really all it takes. Like, this is also an award winning design, which, nothing against them. Like, it communicates, it does its job, but it's also not anything special. And all of that impressive sounding stuff before about the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and all of that, the work that we send them is pretty boring. It's annual reports, it's grant proposals, it's boring stuff, behind the scenes things, nothing super great. And the greatest range of my freelance work is actually the time between projects. I barely have any. Most of them come from friends for no money. Most of that social media following you saw is from one post that I made that was a political hot take that I slapped together in like an hour. I very much believe in the message, but it's not the work that I want to be known for. It's not necessarily a great piece of design, but it got me a bazillion followers for some reason. And you're probably still thinking like, okay, but Adobe Max though, right? How do you get your work featured at Adobe Max? It was in one slide, one part of one slide of one speaker's talk for like 30 seconds. There's the poster that I made on Instagram, and there it is in a slide in one speaker's slide deck. And I didn't even go to that Adobe Max. This was 2019. My boss went, and I only know this because he was sliding through the recorded video, and I was like, wait a second, I know that. And my education is not in design. It's political science and sociology. I have no formal design training. I went to the YouTube School of Art and Design. I don't actually know anything, and nobody should listen to me. So those are two different introductions. Which one is true? And that brings us to the dilemma that we have. I've presented you two different visions. There's the rad designer and the sad designer. The rad designer has it going on. He makes cool work, enjoyed by cool people. Clients want him, designers want to be him. And the sad designer definitely does not have it going on. He only gets paid for boring work. Clients haven't even heard of him, and I don't really want to be him. So again, which one is real? And the answer is yes. Both of them are real. And that brings us to our talk about imposter syndrome. Now, I'm sure you all are familiar. Lots of creative people suffer from it, myself included. But let's just run down a quick definition about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is when you feel like all of your achievements are the result of trickery, deception, or good luck on your part. Essentially, you feel like you don't deserve your success. You also feel like at any moment, someone will notice that you're playing a trick on them, you're deceiving them into thinking that you're better than you are. They'll find out who you really are. They will feel betrayed and you'll feel ashamed. And you also feel like you're not even qualified for what you're doing right now. So you shouldn't try to achieve anything more, because if you're already, pretending for where you are now, what makes you think you can pretend even more the next step up? So yeah, in essence, imposter syndrome comes from the feeling of disconnect between who you're pretending to be and who you know you are. But I'm not quite satisfied with this equation here. And to explain why, I'm going to go back even further and talk about myself in high school, which is, I'm sure, what you all came here to hear. So yeah, high school. Before I knew anything about design, before I knew what I wanted to do, I was an introvert. I still am an introvert, but I was too. And I was absolutely drained by talking to people. I was socially awkward. I didn't have any charisma or confidence. Forget not knowing what to do with your hands. I just didn't know what to do with myself while interacting with people. I did not go to parties. I was lame. Oh, actually, no, cancel that. If you don't like going to parties, more power to you. No judgment. And I was not happy with that. But that was who I was, who I am still. But because I was not happy with it, I decided, okay, I'm gonna try to change, because this is not working for me. So I want to try to be an extrovert. That's who I want to be. And through a lot of work and practice and failure and awkwardness, I feel like I've kind of gotten there. Talking to people still draining, but I've learned to manage it. I'm a lot more confident and charismatic, or at least I hope. I'm at ease socializing with people. I love going to parties, meeting people, hearing about their lives. Of course, before society was canceled. So there's two different versions of myself. Which one is real? And the answer is yes. Both of them are real. And for me, that's not really an interesting question anymore. The more interesting question is, which one is more real? Who you're pretending to be, or who you are, right? Who you are, the introvert, the sad designer, who you're pretending to be the extrovert, pretending to be a better designer. Which one is more real? And I think the part of this equation that's not working for me is the pretending, right? Because you're not really pretending. It's not who you're pretending to be, it's who you want to be, right? And so this is I was having like a breakdown in high school. I felt like I was constantly deceiving everyone. I was trying to be something I wasn't, and felt like I was wearing a mask all the time, and not the kind we wear now. But felt like I was constantly, putting on an act. And then I realized that who I wanted to be was, in fact, who I am, right? My starting point didn't define me, right? It's who I wanted to be and who I chose to become that is actually who I am, right? And just in the same way, the sad designer and the rad designer can be the same person, but just because I'm at a dead end job and I'm not getting freelance clients like I want, like I can choose to change things about myself and work at it to get better. They're the same person who I want to be and who I am. So that brings us to the space in between, right? How do you go from being the sad designer who well, the sad designer before 4 years ago when I didn't even have any of the experience that I do now. Um, you know, I still had to do a whole bunch of stuff to get that poster in someone's slide at Adobe Max, to win those design awards with my team, to, you know, do any number of those impressive sounding accomplishments. What's the bridge there? And so this is where I'm actually going to talk about actionable advice that you guys can take instead of just introducing myself for a fourth time to you. And so these are some of the things that helped me grow a lot from being a person who really, really, really did not know anything about design, either as an art form, as a job, as a way of thinking, to where I am now, which is still still kind of in the dark, but a lot farther along. That first thing is to reach out to people you admire. This is a picture of a design studio in Seattle called Civilization. They are my favorite design studio in the entire world. They make incredible work, but more than that, they have something that not a lot of other studios have, which is a real mission and conviction. A lot of studios are like, you know, we're in this to make money. You know, well, they'll tell you, oh, we're storytellers, right? And whatever mumbo jumbo is on their website. But really, it's, hey, you're Nike, you have a bunch of money, come our way, we'll do some creative work for you. You pay us a bunch of money, you know, hunky dory. Civilization, though, doesn't really care if you're Nike. They don't care if you're Airbnb or any other huge company. They want to know, what are you doing to make the world a better place? What are you doing to build community? What are you doing to advance culture? Are you involved in some sort of political cause? Then they want to do work with you. So if Nike came knocking with Nike bucks, Civilization would be like, nah, go find a different studio. It's not for us. And I find that incredibly inspiring, to have that conviction about why they do work. And a couple of years ago, I was going on a trip to Seattle with some friends, and I decided on a whim, like, I'll send them an email. You know, what's the worst that could happen? Just try to sit down and have a drink with them and just talk. And so I sent an email to one of their founders and creative director, Michael Ellsworth. Just wondering, like, hey, can we, you know, just chat for a bit? And he said, yeah, like immediately. Like, hey, you know, when are you coming? Let's set something up. It ended up not happening because I slipped, fell, broke my wrist, and had to go to the hospital, and, you know, a whole bunch of stuff happened. Our flight got delayed. But I was able to have that conversation over the phone a few weeks later, and it was super great. And I've since done the same thing, just reached out to designers, creative directors. It turns out that people are really, really nice. Designers and creative professionals love telling people about their work. And if you reach out to them, you will most likely get a response, and it will most likely be enthusiastic. So especially starting out, always feel comfortable reaching out to people. You'll be surprised at how nice people are. The next big thing that helps me improve was doing a lot of personal work. I have an Instagram account, which I don't know if y'all like linked it somewhere or something, but it's not work that I do for pay. It's all just work that I've done for myself. And it has been the number one thing that's helped me develop as an artist, as a designer. And I'll show you, here's some of the first things I posted on there about 2 years ago. And the whole shtick of the account was, I'm going to take funny things that I hear coworkers and friends say. I'm going to make little studies out of them, right? I'm going to just focus on picking the right typeface and, orienting it in the right way, doing the right kind of layout to fit the mood. I'm only going to do 2 colors, and it was whatever. I did that for months, and eventually I was reaching a point where, like, I just wasn't satisfied with it anymore, but I didn't know what else to do. And then that trip to Seattle happened, and it was less the conversation with the folks from Civilization and more the breaking my wrist and not being able to use a computer for 3 months. It caused me to, like, step back and reevaluate and completely scrap what I was doing. Like, this is still up there. You can still go see it. I'm never going to take down the frankly terrible work that I did before. But after coming back from that hiatus, I started branching out, pushing myself to discover more rather than just drilling down into one little format. And so here's some more recent things that I've done, and I like them a lot better. And I've learned so much about, just how to make an effective and engaging and evocative design piece. And that, for me, who didn't go to design school, this has been a huge step forward. So whatever you have an interest in, make personal projects out of it. It is the easiest, cheapest, fastest, and most fulfilling way to develop your skills. This is how I ended up in that Adobe Max slide. Is one of the posters that I made for my Instagram got picked up by the people who designed the typeface that I used, and they put it in their presentation. And that's also, where I've met a whole bunch of other designers doing similar things on Instagram. And that brings me to the next point, which is to join communities. And you guys are already doing well there because, here's where we are. But joining communities is huge. Find a community where you are, or online, and find communities that support each other. You guys said you have a Discord server. That is fantastic, especially the like showing and critiquing work is huge. But just a place where everyone is supporting each other in growing, growing either as an artist, growing as a person, growing a community. Seek that out and dig in. That's another huge thing. And if you can't find a community like that, make it. That's another huge part of experience, is making a community, trying to grow it on purpose. Something that I've had to learn the hard way is learn to steal and steal to learn. If you're having imposter syndrome a lot, you're going to feel like if you even so much as glance at somebody else's work and it looks the same as yours, that you're a fraud, you faked it, you've stolen their work, you're good for nothing, you should, why do you even try? And the thing is, there's nothing new under the sun. Like, I'm still trying to drill this into my head. There's nothing new under the sun. It's okay to reference things. In fact, if you find design work that you really, really love, try to copy it. Don't post it anywhere. Like, don't don't do copyright infringement. Copyright infringement is bad. But in your own time, in your own space, copy it. See if you can make an exact carbon copy of whatever it is that you admire, because you will uncover all the little things that make that design work. You will learn new techniques. You will learn different ways of thinking about design by putting yourself in the headspace of a different artist. So yeah, learn to steal and steal to learn. And the last big thing is try to fail. If you're suffering from imposter syndrome, the number one thing that you don't like doing is failing, because it feels like you're exposed, right? You've just exposed yourself as a fraud because you failed, and everyone's going to know that you failed, and they're going to know that, wait a second, they're not actually that good. They're actually bad, and we don't like them anymore. But the thing is, everyone fails all the time at everything. there's a design studio in San Francisco that I really like called Character. And they were in hot water last year for designing 2 almost identical logos for different companies in the same market space. They're like 2 cryptocurrency companies, and the same design studio made them almost the same logo. Like that's insane. That's a huge screw up. And they're a world-renowned design studio. So if a world-renowned design studio can screw up like that, you can screw up too, and it's going to be okay. And the thing is with failing is that you learn a lot. Now that design studio, there's nothing for them to learn there. They should have known better. But if you're trying new things and you fail, that's a success. If you have failed at something that you're trying for the first time, you've still succeeded because the effort is the achievement, right? The effort is the achievement. By trying and failing, you've still succeeded. So that's all the space there is on this slide. Also, the number one thing I'm dealing with after imposter syndrome is procrastination. And I'll be honest, I did not leave myself enough time to make a second slide of tips for this. So I'm going to say that these are my tips for dealing with imposter syndrome, growing yourself into a better designer, a designer that you want to be rather than the designer that you are. And if you work hard enough at becoming the designer or person that you want to be, eventually that will just be who you are. I mean, it's a fancy way of saying fake it till you make it. But the thing is that if you're earnestly trying to be something that you want, then you're not faking it. It's not fake it till you make it. It's, you just are. You've already made it. You're making yourself, essentially. And with that, questions?
Thank you, Brady. I was going to ask, how did you end up going from, political science into design? Like, I'm wondering how you actually got your job where you are now.
Sure. So I went to UC Davis, and I majored in political science and sociology, and I'm still glad that I did that. I loved learning all those things. It's been especially fun knowing all those things the last 4 years. It's made all the news that much more anxiety inducing. But while I was there, I started messing around with Photoshop because in the coffee house where everyone would hang out between classes, like our friend group would always have like a table going of just, friends hanging out. So in between class, you could go there, hang out with your friends, and scattered all around those tables were little like message holders for different promotions that the coffee house was running, like, hey, download our app and get like 20% off something, or hey, did you know blah, 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 right? And I've always been a little bit of a wise guy. So I had the idea of, what if I took those home, like snuck one out of the coffee house, took it home, scanned it, recreated it in Photoshop, but just filled it with nonsense or just funny words instead of actual useful information, printed it out, and then put it all over the coffee house. And so that was my first experience using Photoshop. And I discovered that I really liked it. I had always, been a big fan of building things, either with Legos or woodworking or stuff like that. And the ease and speed at which I could create something using a digital design tool was, really empowering. And so I kept on doing it for things more productive than pranks in the coffee house. And eventually somehow managed to convince the hiring board at Unitrans, which is the student-run transit system for UC Davis. The marketing manager position there is also a student position. Like, it's students all the way down, the HR students, mechanics students, marketing students, bus drivers students. And I was a bus driver. I already worked there, and they had the marketing position open. And I was like, might as well. Like it's something I like to do. And somehow, for some reason, they were dumb enough to give me the job. And I discovered that I loved it. Getting to do all of the, like, I don't know, art shenanigans that I had been doing, but doing it for a purpose, for that people would see and rely on, and that it made a difference in people's days, right? Either looking at the bus schedule, or seeing the different like flyers and information notices on the buses, or social media posts. That was kind of when I decided, like, okay, if I can do this for money, for more money, for a living, then that's what I want to do. And coming out of college, I had a year of experience doing design professionally and no experience doing anything related to political science or sociology. So that's how I ended up where I am. I started as a junior designer, and because I can't go anywhere else, I'm now a senior designer. And yeah, still working on getting out of there, but I've learned a lot along the way. Any other questions?
Hi, Reddy. I had one.
Hey.
You mentioned that you did kind of want to get out of there, but like, what's ideally the next step for you? Like, small agency, big agency, creative. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, before Corona, my goal was to work at one of the studios here in Sacramento, of which there are only 3 good ones, and they never ever hire because they're all really small, and they're inundated with applications. Like, there's one place up here called Honey that does amazing work. They're probably the best design studio in town. And they had an application for a junior designer, and I think they got like 500 applications for it. Like, the entire Sacramento area applied for that job. But now that, remote work is really common, I'm starting to branch out, and I'm preparing some applications for places in New York, for San Francisco, not really limiting myself to Sacramento. And I will say, one other piece of advice that I wanted to include on that slide but didn't have the time to add is, if there is a job that you really, really want, do not under any circumstances apply for it with just a regular ass resume. Like, if you want that job, if it's your dream job and you know you could do it, or even if you think you could do it, go the extra mile on that application. That same place, Honey, when I applied the first time for the junior position, I was part of the design community in Sacramento. I knew everyone who worked there. I knew the creative director. I knew the owner. And when I applied the first time, I was like, oh, I feel like I'm pretty qualified for this job. And I was rejected immediately. No interview, no nothing. And when I asked them the next time I saw them, they were like, oh, we really like you, but you didn't show any like packaging design experience or web design experience, and that we kind of need that. And I was like, okay, that's entirely fair. And at my job, we don't do packaging. I don't do web design at my job. So, how am I going to fix that? Well, about a year and a half later, they had an opening for a senior position. And I was like, I'm going to get this fucking job. Of course, we know now I didn't. But what I did instead was, instead of, typing up a resume and a cover letter and whatever else, I decided to address the problems that they had with it before, which was packaging and web design. So my application was an actual box that folded up. It was completely printed, designed, had some gold foil on it. And inside the box, it slid open, and there was a set of cards, each one detailing a previous job and the experience that I got from it, the skills that I have. And then it linked them to a bespoke one-off website that I made just for it. I used like a free trial of like ReadyMag or Webflow or something to set up a temporary website that had a couple of case studies in branding, which is the main work that they do there. And yeah, so I made a little like cohesive little package out of that application. Was it way overboard? Yes. Did I immediately get called for an interview? Yes. And the only reason I didn't get that job was I flubbed the second interview, which is entirely on me. But I guarantee you, if I had applied with just my standard resume and, hey, here's a link to my portfolio, I was not getting called back for that, right? I was not going to get any sort of interest from them. So yeah, obviously don't do that for every job. That would be insane. But if there's something that you really want, your dream job, go a little bit out of the box for it. Designers appreciate creativity, surprisingly enough. So if you can find an out of the box creative way to not only show them the work experience and skills that you have, but also demonstrate it beyond just, hey, here's a really pretty resume. Like, hey, here's a physical object that not only tells you these things, but shows you them. That gets their attention. That gets you in the door. So I've got some ideas for some studios that I want to apply to. I just need to, start getting that together. But yeah, I'm looking at remote work now. That seems to be where this is going. Is there anyone else? Any other questions? No, going once, going twice, going thrice. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cool. Why don't we give Brady a round of applause if you can unmute or tap the little reaction. Thanks so much,
Thank you,
Brady.
guys.
That was awesome. And next up, we have Leonardo.
Yeah, hey everyone.
Leonardo, are you all set?
Yeah, I am. Brady, that was a wonderful presentation and truly hard to follow that. Thank you for being so vulnerable and so honest with everything you shared. And I'll say everything that he said as somebody who's a little bit more senior to him, at least in terms of experience, maybe not so much in talent. Everything he said is true. So great advice, Brady. Sage wisdom to share with this, folks. Well, and I like that Brady focused on the agency side of the creative space professionally. I'm going to go in-house for everyone with most of my storytelling. I'll share my screen in just a second. And I won't go too deeply into the personal side of my life. I'm pretty much an open book when it comes to my life. And you can see all of my adventures and my family dynamics on my Instagram account. I'm definitely an oversharer there. Some things that you may not see there to share with you is I'm one of 9 siblings, so it's a pretty large family and a lot of them are creatives. In fact, a few of my siblings are even stronger designers and creatives than myself. So it's in the genes, I think, with my family. And then I've also shared a link with my portfolio where, like Brady's point about doing work for yourself and doing work that moves you. My portfolio is a lot of those passion projects. A lot of the work that I actually do day to day in my job is more leadership centric and more strategic in nature, but I'm a craftsperson and I don't think I'd be in a healthy state of mind if I wasn't pushing pixels every now and then. And the portfolio is evidence of that. So in my professional life, I've held many titles. I actually started out my career as a front-end developer, switched to back-end developer, and then back into front-end design. And this was back circa 2001 is when I graduated school. So you can age me based on that simple math. I'm an old timer. I've seen a lot of technologies come and go. But the thing that I think is really important to be successful in a creative space is don't get caught up in the technologies of the tools, wrap your head around frameworks. Get a really good system for yourself so that you can move around and touch many different things. And that for me at least is what's led to a lot of success. And I'm gonna blast through my professional history fairly quickly so that I can get to some more meaty advice.
Hey, Leonardo, I'm just going to pause you really quick.
Oh,
We just want
sure.
to make sure that you're sharing the right desktop or not.
I think I
I'm
am.
not sure
What do
if
you
you were
see on your
sharing.
screen?
It's just the browser
Oh, shit.
browser screen.
1 second.
No, you're good. Yeah, no worries.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I really appreciate you showing off my work, but I want to make sure your presentation comes through.
Oh, it's bizarre. Let me stop and then restart. Yeah, this dual monitor situation is not so good. Let me try desktop number 2. How's that look? A bunch of words on the screen now? Great. So yeah, this is again back to a lot of the titles that I've held. What's allowed me to move around so much and do so many things creatively has been to create frameworks. And if you have a good system, a good framework, a good a way of solving problems, and I believe you can solve problems in many different disciplines and in many different areas, including development. And happy to talk more about that. That's probably a full other presentation down the road. So professionally, I got my start. I went to school for computer science, and I got my start with a publishing company called Scripps Howard News Service. You might know them from like HGTV and Food Network, but I built their back-end publishing system. So like the thing that nobody saw that would put content on the websites and into the physical printed newspapers. That was my role there. And after about 5 years at Scripps, I decided to co-found a startup, which was also in the publishing space called Associated Content. And it was just 3 of us out of my boss's basement. So I did everything there, like the branding, the identity, the website, the back-end system that allowed people to publish. And that stint went very well. After about 5 years, the company was acquired by Yahoo. And I moved over to Yahoo to oversee their publishing products. And I actually did 2 big things at Yahoo. I oversaw their publishing products and then their advertising products eventually. And just to give you a sense of what that work looked like, this is one of the publishing tools that my team created out of Denver, Colorado. This is where my company, Associated Content, was based. When we were acquired, we stayed there, and we opened up the Yahoo Denver office to basically rebuild all of their publishing platform end to end. And I also got to do some cool identity work for the publishing system itself. The metaphor here was we were creating a window to the myriad content that would flow through Yahoo, everything from finance and news to gossip and weather. After a pretty successful stint on the publishing suite, I moved over to head up design for their advertising products. And I won't go into too much detail here, but I did want to show some screens of the geeky, nerdy, data-rich publishing tools, rather advertising tools that my team worked on there. And towards the end of my stint at Yahoo, I also worked on design systems. So there was a lot of this kind of work that brought the non-cohesive ecosystem of Yahoo products together to something more unified. So all the great work that I did previous to this, we needed to have it pair well with the rest of the products, and design system work is where I was really excited to be. It actually brings full circle because I'm in publishing rather in design systems currently. I even got to do some design experimentation while at Yahoo. So I took over the Tumblr advertising and growth team and was able to do a lot of cool like animated GIF advertisements and video advertisements on the Tumblr platform. If you don't know, Tumblr was acquired by Yahoo, and that's why I got to touch that product, which is still one of my favorite sites to go to every now and then. And I even got to coin and get patented a new and different ad format. So this ad format ran on Tumblr, and it was kind of cool. You'd get a like from a brand, like Target would like your photo on Tumblr. If you're a customer, you'd be like, oh shit, that's pretty cool. And you'd go and click, and you'd actually get a custom ad experience from Target with the coupon based on the tagging information of that photo. So fun advertising solutions came from my team, and this is one that I was hands-on with. And eventually that led to my job at Facebook. I was brought in to do something similar that I'd been doing at Yahoo, to reimagine their business products, really their advertising products. And that was a blast. I also got to do things like create design principles for a pretty massive team. And again, principles and frameworks win. And these are the principles that we came up with for Facebook business products. Our products are very different from consumer products. Like They're not like Instagram where you optimize for time spent and you try to make it sticky and engaging. You actually want business customers to come in and out. Like they come and boost a post or they come and create an ad, and then we want them to get back to work. So these principles are reflective of the nuance of business products relative to our consumer products at Facebook, and was really proud to help craft these. But this is what some of the work looked like. This was a project called Actionable Insights, or Actions You Might Take. And we created a system that would help advertisers and businesses better understand what their ads were doing and how to optimize it in the future. So I got to do some fun stuff like data visualization libraries and play with colors and work with accessibility teams to make sure the colors we were using were actually accessibility compliant and useful. So another look at some of that same work. I'm gonna go to play mode here. Another project or another product that I oversaw was our targeting product. This quick demo kind of shows you how if you're in Facebook and you're building an ad, you can do some really rad stuff to target specifically areas of customers. And it got kind of creepy to me, but I was building this tool and my teams were supporting me building this tool. And this project single-handedly triggered me to eventually leave Facebook. Like this is the product that was used 4 years ago that helped get us into the mess politically that we're in today, because people were able to manipulate the targeting mechanisms that we had built. We quickly learned from it. We made a mistake, obviously. We learned from it. We fixed it, and it'll never happen again. But this kind of work at such a large scale, you know, can leave a mark on you, and it certainly did for me. This is just another screen of how we brought clarity to complexity in our products. The faded out screen in the back was the product before I touched it, and then what the UI looked like after my team got a hold of it and fixed it. Again, I got to work on data visualization products. So this was, Candela was our data visualization system at Facebook. And at a blown out 10,000 foot view, that's what it looked like. But if you zoom in, it allowed us to take our products from looking like this, which is kind of clunky and weird, to looking like this, like a motion rich, lots of storytelling as you hover, as you touch things. Again, our products used to look like this, where you click on something, the whole page would refresh, kind of icky. And when I left the company, they looked more like this. Like when you tap, only the bar refreshes and comes back in. So a lot more elegance to the data products and advertising products I touched. And again, I got to play with design systems. This is a first version of the business interface guidelines. What you guys might think of as like brand guide for products, that quickly evolved to a Sketch library. Sketch was brand new at the time, so having your data system or your design system in a Sketch library was pretty rad. But I got to do a lot of other stuff while I was at Facebook. I did a lot of hackathoning, and I built products like this, which was an interview platform. It basically, if you interview at Facebook, you use this product to understand who you're meeting with, what you're going to eat for lunch. If you were applying for a messenger job, we'd actually make sure the tablet had all this messenger content that would get you really excited about the role. And I got to do some experimentation. Some of this actually launched, like multi-product ads on Instagram. This was one of the ideas that I had, and again, at a hackathon. It got built and it looked much better than this. But this is the fidelity of work that I was doing to springboard ideas off the ground. That work on the business product side led me to also do the storytelling for the product. So I joined and led a team called the Guild, and the Guild was basically, think of it as the marketing engine for business products at Facebook. And I won't let this whole video play, but this is a real, whoa. So I skipped through most of it, and I'll share the link of this in case you're curious to see it. But the Guild was an agency, and we would market our own products to small businesses, large businesses. And I shifted from product design to agency design, basically helping our product shine brightly for potential customers. And it was great. I never worked at an agency before. I got to do that at Facebook. So I got to work with really some world-class partners. Like I got to creative direct folks at Pentagram, folks at RGA, folks at agencies that I never thought I'd even be able to work at. And suddenly I was kind of leading their work. So amazing experience there. And then the last job I had at Facebook was overseeing the art department, the artist in residence program and the analog research lab. And one of the coolest jobs I've ever had. But again, this was a phase of my career where I was still feeling pretty icky about working at Facebook just because of all the mistakes that the company had kept making at the time. But it was a fun couple of years leading this team. A high level, this was the flow of what that team did. Facebook would construct a building or build an office. They'd go through an architecture phase, a space design phase, and then I would manage in that pink bar, I would manage curators and artists to come in and fill the space with art. And then we'd get permits to finalize the building, to open it up for employees. And then we'd also go in and fit it up with posters. Again, we would make posters in-house to decorate the walls. And it might sound confusing, but it looks something like this. We'd take a building. My curators would basically say, here's all the artists we want to bring into the building. And they'd also mark in color which walls are gonna get posters. And then my teams would turn the walls and the spaces into something like this. So again, we had literal print shops globally inside of Facebook campuses, and we produce this kind of communication design work. And then this is just a quick snapshot of some of the artists that I personally brought into the Facebook spaces to make it feel awesome and inspiring. I think most of these were all in Building 21 in Menlo Park here close to us. But like I said, eventually I got kind of burnt out, and I thought I was going to take some time off from working, actually, like 5 or 6 months, and I just couldn't stay away. I couldn't really get into a good rhythm of not working. And so I started consulting, and one of the consultations led to a full-time head of design job with Next Insurance. It's a small business fintech startup in Palo Alto. And that was awesome. I worked with Next for about 6 months, and I did everything at Next, end to end, from space design to product design to culture design. But about 6 months in, Intuit came knocking at the door and had a really cool opportunity for me to join them. And as Jaime mentioned, Intuit is products that you might know, like TurboTax, QuickBooks, and Mint. And I sit in a unique position across all of the products at Intuit, where I'm trying to make them all better in lockstep fashion. So instead of making Mint awesome with a couple of features here and there, we're actually going to say which part of that feature can be utilized by QuickBooks products and TurboTax products. And my team, which is small but mighty, takes the best features and best designs and best patterns and floods them across the entire ecosystem. And my team is called the Intuit Design System team. Again, I can't stay away from design, so I created the mark, I created the team, and we have a really cool vision to kind of make all of our products a little bit more beautiful and engaging. Let's see, that might be the last slide there. So yeah, that brings us to current with my professional history. And the thing that I want to share with you guys from my lens as a design leader is to maybe give you a little bit more insight into how we think about designers like you coming out of college and looking to work at a tech company or a tech startup. And so one of the things that I've done at Intuit was I've helped create the Intuit Design Profiles. This is basically the Bible for managers at Intuit on how to think about talent and how to take talent from entry level all the way to the most senior level. So you're looking at kind of a little bit of how the sausage is made when building design teams, but it's a really healthy process. And I have a version of this deck that I can share with you. I can't share everything with you, and I'll make sure that you guys have a PDF of that. The area that I want to focus in on with you is helping you understand how we think about levels for individual contributor designers, basically non-leadership type designers that you're part of a team. And and this is very similar to how Facebook does it and very similar to how Yahoo does it. So this is kind of a standard for product design and visual design and interaction design at companies, is we usually start out with interns, and that's seasonal. Like every summer we'll have a huge intern set, and we break it down by 4 dimensions. Like, what's the scope of the role? What's the project complexity that we're giving these folks? What's the guidance and direction? Let me go a little bit bigger for you guys. what's the guidance and direction that they have or need, and then what's the design leadership that we expect of these different roles. And you can see, like, if you're an intern, I won't read through every single box on this matrix, but you can start to understand like what we expect a designer out of college to do, and that's probably here or here in these first two columns. The complexity might be, for an intern, you're only going to tackle one project at a time, and there's going to be low complexity on that project. If you move from intern to a full-time designer, I see 3 or 4, you're probably going to take on 1 to 2 projects every quarter or every sprint. And you'll actually have some complexity to that, where it's not just central to your product, it's actually going to feed out into the ecosystem of products. So there's a lot of reusable design thinking expected at that level. And you can start to see how it gets really gnarly as you go up to senior, principal, and strategist, where there's only a few strategists into it. In fact, I only have one on my team, where they basically can run the team if I were to go away. They're basically my lieutenant. So they can identify and define problems in the ecosystem. They can basically say, hey, there's an opportunity to help low-income members of this community. Here's a new product idea that can serve them better. Here's the brief for that product. Let's go and share it with the engineer to see if we can build it. Like, they're doing that level of strategy for product building. And that's just on the project complexity dimension. If you look at the scope of work above, you can see how we still have a strong, high expectation of interns and designers executing on the vision that we give to them. But the difference from an intern and designer is now you're exhibiting strategic approaches to solving some of those things versus getting the strategy and getting the tactics given to you as a junior or intern designer. So a lot of what's necessary to be successful, at least in the tech startup environment as a designer, is autonomy. And so the advice that I give to my mentees a lot of times is, if you're going to focus on one thing, it's focus on being autonomous. It's find ways to make sure that you can make decisions with data-backed rationale or customer-backed rationale, and just make assumptions and go forward and launch something and iterate on that thing that you launched. And I really love what Brady said. Like, the faster you do that and the faster you fail at that experiment, the faster you get back into the saddle and deliver something new. It's really the designers who don't capture that or don't really embrace that mentality, that they never make it to principal level, because they just don't, they're not, I guess, as bold and they don't work boundaryless to solve problems. So this is, if you're looking to grow as a designer, that's one area that's very, very important. Be risky, be a risk taker, be bold. I don't mean to, like, you don't want to be cocky, but you also want to have a strong point of view on everything that you're solving for. That's a huge expectation. Let me back out for a second here. So again, this is one of the slides that I can actually share with you guys, because there's a lot of tidbits and nuggets here that might be useful for you. But the other slide that I wanted to share with you talks more about the different types of disciplines and the skills required in those disciplines at companies like Facebook and Intuit and Yahoo. So this isn't the final list or a full list, but this is basically the 6 primary types of designers that we hire at a big company environment. Content design, you sometimes hear as content strategy, and it's the writers, but it goes beyond writing and beyond copywriting and copy editing. It's actually content strategy and how well is copy represented in design components. So if I'm designing a button, let's say, my specifications, my specs for the button might stop at, here's the radius and elevation and the size and the padding. But there's additional things needed, like, well, what's the tone of the copy? And where do we truncate? And what's the max length of content in a button? Because if you have a full sentence in a button, it doesn't look like a button anymore. Content designers understand that. They're previously typesetters, they're previously copywriters. Maybe they worked in a newsroom and they understand the AP style guide inside and out. They're a massive part of successful design teams, and we have a bunch of them at Intuit. Design operations are basically, they're my best friends. They're what make design teams work. And if you're a designer, but you don't really love pushing pixels, but you still love solving problems, then a design operations person design operations role rather, might be good for you, because you're still using design processes and structures and frameworks and systems to get things done, but you're not necessarily behind Illustrator or Figma doing the work. You're basically wrangling cats, design cats, and making sure they understand how to solve the problem. Love design operations, folks. They're my favorite people. Obviously, design research is important at big companies. You need both qualitative and quantitative signal to be successful as a product designer. So design research is embedded in every single team at every major company in the Bay Area and globally, I imagine. Design technologists are kind of what I am. If you're a hacker, if you're an engineer, if you actually love to code and design, a design technologist role might be perfect for you. They're basically what we used to call prototypers in the past, but on steroids. Like, not only can they just prototype a design and make it come to life, they can actually do the design and make it come to life. I see design technologists as like an end-to-end product designer in many ways. But then you do have a kind of a segment specific to product design, and I think you guys all know that term. We break it down into 3 separate functions. You're either an end-to-end product designer, or you're an interaction designer, or you're a visual designer. And a visual designer is like the swagger makers. Like, they're the ones that add polish and finesse, and they make sure everything's pixel perfect. An interaction designer knows more about the design heuristics and UX and what is natural in terms of like swiping and tapping and clicking, and they bring that into your product. And a product designer is basically piecing all of that together in a really intuitive way, creating those end-to-end flows in a product. And then lastly, but certainly not least, we also employ service design. Service design is one of the oldest terms. They're the oldest types of designers. They look at a problem, they understand it from a meta perspective, and then they give you a system to solve it. And they actually get their hands dirty in solving it, like with sketches and storyboards and layout design. Service design started back in like the 1800s when they were trying to solve like feeding armies. They would get a service designer to come in and like set up, triage and set up canteens and mess halls, et cetera, and do design problem solving for those types of things. So service design has been around forever, and good tech companies are starting to employ them to make sure, like, zoomed out holistically, your products are in service to something. They're solving problems. They're helping people thrive in whatever capacity that you're looking for. And then I won't go through each of the following slides, but what I've also been given permission to share with you is the write-up, the detailed write-up of each of these different disciplines. So you can learn more about what design operations folks do, what researchers do, et cetera. So that is that. I think there was one more thing I wanted to share, but it's not coming to me. So I'll shut up and I will pause there for any questions or any follow-ups to any of what I just shared. I'll also take a breath. Cool. Any questions?
This is probably a stupid question, but you would advise coding as one of the hallmark skills to have as a designer?
I don't know. I go back and forth on this, Ethan, and I think that for me, I'm biased because I was a coder, and I think it's just natural for me to have those skills. But I've seen some of the best designers that I've worked with, and even some of the best designers that I look up to are not developers. But the thing that differentiates good from okay is you're able to speak to engineers. And I think that's basically maybe the hallmark, or that would be the salient takeaway is learn to collaborate with engineers, learn to speak their language, but you don't have to necessarily learn to code. As long as you can, there's a metaphor that we use at the companies I've worked in where if you're a bad design team, if you throw a design over the fence and you wait for engineers to build it, and then you check to see if it was what you designed. Good companies actually have a handshake model where we bring engineers along for the journey, but you can't bring them along for the journey if you can't connect with them, if you can't build rapport with them. So that would be my guidance, is to try to understand them, try to understand what they're trying to solve, what their limitations are, what their biases are. And by doing so, I think you'll be able to work with them very successfully. But I don't think it's going to be status quo to be an engineer or to be a coder.
I had a question about just your design process in general. So it looks like for your projects, you have around like roughly 7 different types of like specialized designers. So I was just wondering, like, what a project looks like for you guys? Like, how do you communicate? Like, what does the cycle of actually developing that look like?
Yeah. God, it used to be so messy. I'll be honest, Kristen, and it sucked up until recently, but collaboration tools have gotten so much better. And I'm going to share my screen again to show you an example of how we work. And for this one, I think I need to go to desktop. Well, I'll leave it on desktop too. And you should be able to see a Figma file on screen. Are you guys seeing that? So a couple of things have really changed the game, and no matter what discipline you're in, Kristen, Figma has changed the game. And if you're not using Figma yet, 100% start using Figma. And you can challenge me on that as much as you want, but Figma is the future. I promise you. Unless Adobe comes up with motion design and sound design and design tokens, and they solve for that first, maybe Adobe will still be relevant in 20 years. But I think something, either Figma or something like Figma, is going to be the future. And the reason it's so important is this is an example of a super crazy project that we worked on and we just completed recently. But I was chartered or given the task of redesigning all of our icons for all of our products at Intuit. And you could imagine that's crazy because there's like businesses within businesses, teams within teams, and we don't even own the icons. But all of this work was done by my team in collaboration with all of these other teams, literally dozens of people. The way that we got around that was we create these mechanisms, these frameworks. The first framework you build is called a DAISY. A DAISY stands for who's driving it, who's approving it, who contributes to it, and then who's informed once it's launched. A DAISY protects your team so that even if somebody has a strong opinion, and even if that person's a CMO of the company, it's like, sorry, CMO, you're not approving this. Our approver is this person, and you signed off on the DAISY. It's like, fuck, okay, fair enough. So governance is the first important step of a good design process and a good team setup. But then using a tool like Figma, where you're constantly telling engineers, hey, come here, here's the link for this, look at this spec, here's what we need it to look like. And then the designers come in and say, oh, okay, great, I got that. And they can actually double click in, get the red line. Figma changed the game for us, where before we'd have to use Sketch, we'd export to Zeppelin. Zeppelin would have these really wonky red lines. We'd have to actually meet with engineers to make sure the red lines were accurate. All of that's gone. So that's the second important step. Find a tool like Figma that's highly collaborative, super transparent, so that everyone throughout the process has visibility into what you're doing. And I'll give you a good example. Part of this process was Apple sucks in one way in particular, in that is they change their standards for their app store, like almost daily. And we didn't know that. And so we designed the App Store experience for Apple, which looked something like this. Like if you go to an app store, you get a card that promotes the product. Well, they change this all the time and we didn't know. But because we had this in real time, and the team that works with Apple from Intuit saw this, they're like, oh, hey, stop it. That's not the standard anymore. You need to change the font size to be this minimum one. We're like, holy shit, we would have just got declined. We would have had to wait another month. Thank you for flagging that. We changed it in Figma because that person has visibility and we're able to ship it without any friction. So again, the value of open and transparent creative cultures will help you move faster and really protect you from making mistakes. I hope that answered your question. I might have rambled a little bit, but.
No, that made a lot of sense. Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Leonardo, I had another question as well.
Yeah, sure.
So one thing I was curious about is how maybe your role at Facebook had sort of prepared you for, shifting over to Intuit, and maybe how that environment was a little bit different than, your previous role.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to get all bad vibes on everyone, but I think the difference is Intuit is solving real critical things. And both Intuit and Facebook are, frankly, probably two of the most consequential companies on the planet. Facebook because it's dividing a country. Intuit because it can either make or break a business from surviving and create sustainable wealth for people and businesses. And so they're both like crazy companies to work at because the stakes are really high. But what I learned at Facebook that really prepared me for Intuit was designing at scale takes a lot of extra work in terms of how buttoned up you are with your storytelling. because you're billions of people will see your feature, and that's nuts to just say out loud. Your articulation of what you're solving for and the metrics behind it, you can't just say this is going to be a cool thing to watch, let's wait and see. You have to say this is a cool thing to watch, now let's go to research and show you like the 10 pages of data that tells us why this is going to be impactful. Like that's a crazy different mindset as a designer to work in. But if you can do that, you're going to be successful anywhere at scale. So working at scale, working with data-backed rationale is what really prepared me for Intuit, because at Intuit, it's all about money. Whether you're using Mint for your own personal finances or you're doing your taxes at the end of the year, accuracy is important. There's a lot of data, so you want to be really good about making that clear. So your storytelling is really key there. So I guess you can learn good storytelling anywhere, but and you should. But doing it at the scale of a company like Facebook really prepared me well for Intuit.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah.
I just wanted to chime in with something. Listen to everything Leonardo said about Daisy. That is everything I do not have at my job, and it makes it terrible because any executive can butt their head in and be like, oh, what's this? I think it should be this different way. And there's no way that we can tell them no. There's no structure that we all agreed to that prevents some executive from getting their own personal little, like, I don't know, say in something, which is often to the detriment of not only just the way things look, but the actual like mission of what each piece is trying to do and what problem it's trying to solve. So yes, please listen to him. It is a real problem that gets solved by using a structure like that.
Yeah, and Brady, just to build on that point, yes, it protects you and your work because it makes it sacred, but it also makes it very clear who's doing what. And if I was the driver and I had a working team of all of you, and it listed clearly like Kristen's doing motion design, Jamie's doing the typography, Ethan's going to do the sound, Janet's going to do the print layout for it. You're creating really clear swim lanes for all of us, and it's okay to splash other swim lanes, but you know what you're accountable for. And a good Daisy, a good governance just makes everyone accountable, and it kind of removes ego from a lot of things, right? It's like, cool, Jamie, you don't think that's cool? Well, it's okay because you don't own that. Kristen owns that, so she's going to run with it, and it's her decision. And that might suck for you, Jaime, but it's great for Kristen and it's great for the team to move forward at a good pace. Cool. Happy to take one last question if anybody has it. Otherwise, we can all go to sleep. Actually, you're probably all going to still stay up doing work or watching Netflix. I think I'll be going to sleep.
Accurate. Does anybody have a final question that they maybe want to ask? I kind of have maybe one that we could probably wrap up on.
Sure.
This could be for both of you guys. Maybe, well, you know, with all of the recent, you know, occurrences this year, you know, it's been tough, obviously, for everybody. What are you guys both maybe optimistic for in regards to just, you know, the design industry as a whole? And it could be, you know, the state of remote working or, you know, each role that you guys have, or maybe a goal that you might have.
Yeah, I feel like Brady's going to be a lot more elegant with his answer, given his expertise. So I'll go first, so we could end on a higher note. I think for me, I'm cautiously optimistic because I'm still so pissed off. Sorry, if no judgment for any political views one way or the other, but I'm still pissed about how much divide there is and how accepted some things that I don't believe in is still so prevalent out there. So the optimism, the cautious optimism that I have is going to lead for me to have more goals in reaching out to broader design communities. Like I want to meet with design communities in Florida and Austin and Alabama, and maybe even spend time with those schools and try to understand that viewpoint, just so that I can wrap my head around why the fuck we're still so divided. And the good news there, Jaime, is that we have the technology to do so. Like we have like Discord and Figma and like open channels of communication that I don't think we as designers, we as creatives are really leaning into. I think we have amazing gifts as storytellers, as creators. And I think we need to kind of turn that into dialogue with the people that we're so distant from. And that's for me what I'm looking forward to doing with more of my time.
Leonardo, thank you for your confidence in me, but I assure you, you're probably the one that everyone here should be listening to. My answer to the question, I mean, there's the adage that crisis is synonymous with opportunity. And we are beset with crises right now. There's a climate that's falling apart, a nation divided, all sorts of problems going on. And each one of those creates opportunity. Design is problem solving. And if there's a lot of problems, then there's a lot of solving to do. And I'm really optimistic for the way in which designers as a community are becoming more cognizant of their role in being parts of those solutions, that we have the skills that can help in those places, even if it's just, I know how to make snappy Instagram graphics. I know how to, do any number of things. At the root of that is analyzing and solving problems. And that's a skill that you can apply to any number of different things. And I feel like the design community is becoming more cognizant of its ability to solve problems, the number of problems that there are to be solved, and also of its own biases and limitations. I remember this summer there was a huge conversation in design Instagram about privilege and background and making sure that you understand and listen to other people's stories. And I think a lot of designers are becoming more aware of their place in society and what they can do to help other people, help lift other people up, help create a more cohesive, united, and diverse design community that serves and helps everyone. And I'm really optimistic for how all of that's going to come together. That's what I'm optimistic about. Now, whether we can do that before society collapses or the planet burns, who knows? But we're on our way.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Why don't we give another round of applause, either unmute or react? That'd be awesome. Thanks, Leonardo. Thanks, Brady. Stick around, I guess, you guys, for another upcoming event that we potentially might host. But, the Discord's always there, and we're all, night owls or early birds at any hour. So get in contact, with classmates and whatnot, and keep communicating with one another. Big thanks, Leonardo. Big thanks, Brady. Shout out Mark and all the officers also for collaborating with one another to kind of get the ball rolling with this. I know it's hard to event plan and everything, right? Those who were able to, show up, the junior classmates as well. You guys are awesome.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
With that, we can conclude.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Happy Veterans Day.
Oh, yes.